The grand chamber of the Galactic Concord wasn't exactly what one would call humble architecture. Much like an overcompensating bureaucrat with something to prove, the ceiling soared hundreds of meters overhead, adorned with holographic constellations that shifted to represent whatever star system currently held the floor. The delegates' platforms hovered in concentric rings, segregated by technological development, military might, and most importantly how many zeros appeared in their gross planetary product. Humanity sat in the cheap seats. Fourth ring, Section 82C, muttered Ambassador Chen as he straightened his collar. Right between the methane-breathing slug people of Tenebrae Night and that civilization of sentient coral. At least we've moved up from last year. Progress, I suppose. His aide coughed discreetly. Sir, the Tenebrians are actually a highly respected elder race with 17 billion years of continuous civilization. Yes, and they communicate by secreting various mucus films. Forgive me if I don't consider them ideal conversational partners at the after-meeting reception. The Galactic Concord had welcomed Earth into its ranks approximately 8 standard years ago, following humanity's development of viable faster-than-light travel. Welcomed being a rather generous term for what actually happened, which was more like being assigned a seat at the children's table during an awkward family reunion. The elder species tolerated humans with the strained patience of university professors dealing with a particularly dense undergraduate. None displayed this attitude more thoroughly than the Xylosian. The Xylosian Empire sprawled across 3 spiral arms, comprising over 800 developed worlds and nearly 4,000 colonies. They had mastered gravitational manipulation when humans were still perfecting the wheel. Their delegate platform floated in the prestigious first ring, directly opposite the Concord Arbiter's position. Ambassador Chen watched as the Xylosian Envoy glided to the center of the chamber. Envoy Six was tall even by Xylosian standards, standing nearly 3 meters, with the characteristic crystalline exoskeleton that shimmered with iridescent blues and purples. 4 primary arms and 2 smaller manipulator limbs, gestured gracefully as the envoy addressed the chamber. The Xylosian Empire requests the floor to address recent territorial expansions in the Orion Spur, announced the Arbiter, a gelatinous being whose translucent body contained visible neural networks that flashed with each word. The Concord recognizes Envoy Six of the Xylosian Empire, the Arbiter continued. You may proceed. The chamber's acoustics carried Six's voice with perfect clarity. The translator implants rendered the complex harmonic language into whatever the listener's native tongue might be. Esteemed delegates of the Galactic Concord, Six began, head crest flaring with diplomatic formality. The Xylosian Empire wishes to express concern regarding unchecked expansion in the Orion Spur, particularly near the Pleiades transit corridor. Ambassador Chen shifted uncomfortably. The Pleiades corridor lay uncomfortably close to Earth's newest colony worlds. Of particular concern, continued Six, are the primitive vessels being deployed by the recent addition to our Concord, the humans of Earth. The chamber buzzed with murmur. Direct naming of species during formal proceedings was considered either a grave insult or a high honor. This was definitely not the latter. The humans have deployed what they consider to be state-of-the-art vessels using fusion propulsion, and here the envoy's translator seemed to struggle, finally settling on projectile weaponry. A ripple of what could only be described as alien laughter spread through the chamber. Indeed, Six continued, crystal plates shifting in what humans had learned was a Xylosian smile. Their technology is charming in its quaintness. However, their biological limitations are of greater concern. Their brief lifespans, averaging less than a single century, and their carbon-based physiology make them uniquely vulnerable to cosmic radiation, gravitational stress, and virtually every environmental hazard in developed space. Ambassador Chen maintained a neutral expression, though his knuckles whitened as he gripped the edge of his platform. Their cultural development is similarly stunted, Six added, warming to the subject. They still organize around geographical nation-states. They continue to consume animal proteins synthesized from once living organisms. And perhaps most amusingly, they maintain the primitive concept of money as a resource allocation system. More laughter echoed through the chamber. In light of these charming limitations, the Xylosian Empire proposes a compassionate solution. Human expansion should be restricted to a 5 light-year radius from their homeworld. For their own protection, of course. They simply aren't ready for the complexities of interstellar politics or commerce. The chamber erupted in discussion. Many of the elder species nodded in agreement. The newer members, those who might one day face similar restrictions, exchanged worried glances. The Arbiter's neural networks flashed rapidly. The floor recognizes Ambassador Chen of Earth. A hush fell as Chen's platform detached from the fourth ring and floated toward the center. The human stood calmly, hands clasped behind his back, his expression revealing nothing. The representative of Earth thanks Envoy Seeks for the Xylosian Empire's concern for our well-being, Chen said, his voice steady and measured. We appreciate such thoughtful attention from such an advanced civilization. Seeks' head crest flattened in confusion. This was not the emotional outburst expected from humans. Earth will, of course, take these recommendations under advisement. Chen continued with a slight smile. We would not want our primitive vessels to cause any inconvenience to the mighty Xylosian Empire. The sarcasm was subtle but unmistakable. Earth has no further comments at this time, Chen concluded, bowing slightly to the Arbiter. As his platform returned to the fourth ring, whispers spread throughout the chamber. The delegates from Arcturus leaned toward their Centaurian neighbor. The hive mind of Betelgeuse buzzed with speculation. Even the normally impassive Andromedans seemed perplexed by the humans' restrained response. Only the representative from Tau Ceti, whose species had once faced similar ridicule, noticed the brief message Chen transmitted to Earth immediately after his statement. The message was short, only 3 words, but its brevity suggested urgency rather than insignificance. Envoy Seeks left the chamber with the satisfied air of one who had put an upstart in its place. The Xylosian had no way of knowing that those 3 words would soon make them regret ever mentioning humanity in the Galactic Concord. Protocol Quiet Thunder. The 3-word message from Ambassador Chen arrived at Earth's Central Command, with all the subtlety of a whisper, and all the impact of a supernova. Protocol Quiet Thunder. Within 12 minutes, every military installation across the Sol system had shifted to Readiness Level 2. Within 27 minutes, the Admiralty convened in the orbital headquarters above Mars, and within 53 minutes, humanity's response to the Xylosian mockery began to unfold, with the precision of a surgeon and the patience of a predator. They called our ships primitive, Admiral Wu remarked, her weathered face illuminated by the tactical display showing the positions of Earth's fleet. Charming in their quaintness, I believe was the exact phrase. Fleet Commander Okafor snorted. Fascinating how being an advanced species doesn't prevent one from being an absolute jackass. The Xylosians have made a critical error, observed Director Patel of Intelligence, scrolling through the full transcript of the Concord meeting. They've confused our diplomatic restraint for technological limitation. A common enough mistake, Wu said, tapping a command into the holographic interface. Humanity's been playing this game since the first tribes figured out it's sometimes better to look weak until you're ready to be strong. The room fell silent as the massive strategic display shifted, revealing not the handful of ships the Xylosians believed Earth possessed, but the actual extent of humanity's naval power, over 400 vessels of varying class strategically positioned throughout human space, but carefully kept off galactic observation networks. The Phantom Fleet, Okafor said with undisguised pride. 7 years of construction in shielded orbital facility, electromagnetic dampening technology that makes them virtually invisible to standard scanners, and weapons systems that would make our Xylosian friends' crystalline exoskeletons crack with envy. Not that they know about any of it, Patel added. Our official registry with the Concord lists 42 ships, mostly visible patrol vessels and colony transports. Admiral Wu's face hardened. Begin deployment pattern Epsilon. I want task forces, Artemis and Apollo move to the edge of Xylosian detection range. Task Force Athena will remain in reserve, but ready for immediate transit. And Task Force Ares, asked Okafor, referring to Earth's most advanced battle group. Wu's smile could have frozen nitrogen. Task Force Ares will be our surprise guest at the party. Position them in the shadow of Pleiades transit point, G7. Exactly where the Xylosians complained about our presence. Full stealth protocols. The Xylosians will detect the increased activity eventually, Patel cautioned. Of course they will, Wu replied. That's rather the point. Meanwhile, back at the Galactic Concord, Envoy 6 was basking in what passed for adulation among the Xylosian diplomatic corps, which primarily consisted of slightly more elaborate harmonic vocalizations during status reports. The human representative offered no substantive resistance to our proposal. 6 informed the Xylosian High Command via quantum entanglement communicator. As expected, their diplomatic capabilities are as underdeveloped as their technology. The High Commander's crystalline form glittered with approval. Excellent work, Envoy. The restriction zone proposal proceeds according to plan. Once implemented, we can accelerate resource extraction in the contested regions, without human interference. They are such simple creatures, 6 continued, head crest expanding with self-satisfaction. Their ambassadors seemed almost grateful for our concern. I predict they will voluntarily withdraw from the Pleiades corridor within a standard month. The conversation might have continued in this self-congratulatory vein, indefinitely had a junior communication officer, not interrupted with visible agitation, their usually orderly crystal plates shifting in disharmonious pattern. High Commander, urgent report from Outpost Sigma 12 near the human boundary, the officer transmitted. They're detecting unusual energy signatures consistent with large-scale ship movements. Impossible. 6 dismissed immediately. Human vessels are primitive fusion drive constructs. Our sensors would have detected them long before they approached our territory. The High Commander, however, had not achieved their position by dismissing anomalous data. Investigate. Deploy scout vessels with enhanced scanning capabilities. Already done, High Commander. The officer replied. Scout vessel crystalline clarity reports visual confirmation of what appears to be a human battle group, near transit point C3. The vessel count exceeds known human naval capacity by a factor of 6. Uncomfortable silence fell across the Xylosian command center. Perhaps, the High Commander finally suggested, crystal plates shifting into a pattern denoting cautious reassessment. We should review our intelligence on human capabilities. Back at the Concord, Ambassador Chen continued attending meetings with serene composure. If anything, he seemed more relaxed than before, occasionally checking his communication device with what almost looked like satisfaction. The representative from Proxima Centauri, whose species prided themselves on their observational skills, noted that the human had switched from coffee to tea during afternoon sessions. A subtle shift that, in human diplomatic circles, often signaled a transition from alertness to patience. I couldn't help but notice your change in beverage preference, Ambassador Proxima mentioned during a recess. Their multiple eye stalks swiveled with curiosity. Ah, yes, Chen replied, the ghost of a smile playing at his lip. Some situations call for coffee when immediate action is required. Others call for tea when one must wait for events to unfold naturally. And the Xylosian situation calls for tea, the Proximan inquired, antennae twitching with interest. Chen took a deliberate sip from his cup. The finest oolong, in fact. It requires exactly the right brewing time. Too short and you miss the complexity. Too long and the bitterness overwhelms the experience. The Proximan, whose species had evolved alongside Earth's second closest stellar neighbor, understood metaphor well enough to recognize one when they heard it. I suspect Envoy 6 may find humanity's response complex. Perhaps, Chen agreed mildly, though I do hope it won't be too bitter for their taste. Throughout the following days, rumors began circulating through the Concord's hallways. The methane-breathing Tenebrians reported unusual shipping pattern disruptions. Near humans, the sentient coral collective whispered of unprecedented energy signatures, detected by their far-flung polyp observers. Even the normally aloof Arcturians seemed unusually interested in human activity. Only the Xylosian delegation remained oblivious, convinced of their superiority and the effectiveness of their diplomatic maneuvering. That changed abruptly when Envoy 6 received an urgent communication during a minor subcommittee meeting on interspecies trade regulation. The message was brief, but alarming. Unineng vessels, detected at 17 strategic points surrounding Xylosian core territories. Configuration suggests human origin. Weapons capabilities unnamed, but energy signatures exceed registered. Weapons capabilities unnamed, but energy signatures exceed registered human technology by orders of magnitude. 6's crystal plates shifted so violently that several nearby delegates turned in alarm, expecting the Xylosian was experiencing some kind of medical emergency. Across the chamber, Ambassador Chen calmly added honey to his tea, stirred it precisely 3 times, and took a measured sip. The brewing had begun. The Xylosian Empire had not faced a genuine military threat in over 3 centuries. This comfortable fact had slowly transformed their strategic thinking, from pragmatic caution to institutional arrogance. A transformation now proving rather inconvenient, as reports flooded in from across their territory. Unknown vessel configuration at coordinates 202, reported one frantic crystal-plated officer. Energy signatures consistent with advanced gravitic propulsion detected near colony cluster Epsilon. Transmitted another. Outpost Z8 reports visual confirmation of vessels matching human design aesthetics, but exceeding known human technological capabilities. A third voice harmonized with increasing dissonance. The Xylosian High Command Chamber, normally a model of crystalline serenity, now resembled nothing so much as a disturbed hive of particularly anxious geometric insects. High Commander X6, whose elaborate plate patterns denoted 12 generations of military excellence, maintained a composure that was increasingly at odds with the situation at hand. These reports are fragmentary and likely exaggerated, they declared, though with noticeably less harmonic confidence than usual. Human vessels are primitive fusion drive constructs with limited range and negligible weapons capability. The tactical officer's crystal plates shifted, in the pattern denoting respectful contradiction, a rarely used configuration in Xylosian military discourse. High Commander Scout Vessel Resonant Clarity has transmitted detailed scans of one of the human vessels near the Pleiades corridor, they reported, projecting a holographic image in the center of the command chamber. The vessel that appeared was unmistakably of human design. The blocky, pragmatic aesthetics, favored by Earth engineers, were evident in its overall structure, but that's where the similarities to known human ships end. This vessel appears to utilize a previously unknown form of gravitic propulsion. The tactical officer continued. Note the absence of conventional exhaust ports, and the presence of what appear to be localized space-time distortion emitters. Our analysis suggests it's capable of precision FTL jumps without requiring traditional entry and exit vectors. The High Commander's plates shifted minutely, the Xylosian equivalent of a concerned frown, and the weapon systems they inquired. The tactical officer's harmonic response contained unmistakable frequencies of alarm. We cannot identify most of them, High Commander. They bear no resemblance to registered human armament. However, these structures, the hologram highlighted several sections of the vessel, generate energy signatures consistent with directed gravitational manipulation. Gravitational weapons. The High Commander's voice lost its harmonic balance entirely. That's 7th-tier military technology. The humans are classified as 3rd tier at most. There's more. The tactical officer continued reluctantly. The ship's hull composition includes materials unknown to our science division, and its size, it's at least 4 times larger than any previously documented human vessel. A heavy silence fell across the command chamber, broken only by the subtle crystalline sounds of nervous plate shifting. How many such vessels have been detected? The High Commander finally asked. At last, 178. High Commander, and those are just the ones our sensors can detect. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Ambassador Chen was enjoying a particularly excellent lunch in the Concord's diplomatic dining hall. The chef had prepared a passable approximation of Sichuan cuisine. No small feat considering the ingredients had to be imported from Earth at considerable expense. Ambassador Chen, a melodious voice interrupted his meal. May I join you? Chen looked up to find the Arcturian delegate hovering beside his table. The cloud-like being's normally blue hue had shifted to a curious purple, an indication of intense interest in Arcturian emotional display. By all means, Delegate Sephiros, Chen replied, gesturing to the empty chair across from him.
The Arcturian condensed slightly to fit into the human-sized seating. Fascinating developments occurring around the Pleiades corridor, they observed casually, their voice like wind through crystal chimes. "Oh?" Chen responded, taking a bite of his spicy tofu with practiced nonchalance. "Indeed, our sensory outposts have detected what appears to be a significant human naval presence. Quite significant, in fact." The Arcturian's form pulsed slightly. One might almost call it overwhelming. Chen dabbed his lips with a napkin. "The Earth government occasionally conducts naval exercises. Nothing unusual, I assure you." "Of course," the Arcturian agreed smoothly, "though the timing is interesting, particularly given Envoy 6's recent comments regarding human technological capabilities." Chen smiled. "Perhaps the Xylosians will find our exercises educational." The Arcturian's color shifted to an amused gold. "I suspect the education has already begun." The Xylosian delegation appears to be in quite a state of agitation. As if summoned by the observation, Envoy 6 burst into the dining hall, crystal plates shifting in chaotic pattern. The normally graceful Xylosian moved with jerky urgency toward Chen's table. Ambassador 6's harmonic voice contained distorted undertones of barely suppressed panic. "There appears to be a misunderstanding that requires immediate clarification." Chen took a leisurely sip of his tea. "Envoy 6, what a pleasant surprise. Would you care to join us? The chef has prepared a remarkable approximation of Earth cuisine." "This is not a social call," 6 snapped, harmonic discipline failing entirely. "Your government has positioned military vessels in proximity to Xylosian territory in what can only be interpreted as an aggressive posture." "Aggressive?" Chen's eyebrows rose in perfect mimicry of surprise. "Not at all. As I was just explaining to Delegate Sapphoros, Earth occasionally conducts naval exercises. Standard procedure for maintaining operational readiness. Naval exercises do not require 178 capital ships." 6's voice cracked on the number, crystal plates rattling audibly. The dining hall had fallen silent, with delegates from dozens of species now openly watching the exchange. 178, Chen repeated thoughtfully. "That seems like a rather precise number, and quite low actually." 6's head crest flattened in confusion. "Low, indeed," Chen nodded, returning to his meal with infuriating calm. "Task forces, Artemis and Apollo typically deploy with at least 200 vessels between them. Perhaps your sensors aren't detecting the entire formation." The dining hall erupted in a cacophony of multi-species whispers. The Proximan representatives' eye stalks extended to their full length in surprise. The methane-breathing Tenebrian released a particularly pungent cloud of shock pheromones, forcing nearby delegates to activate emergency atmospheric filters. 200. 6 repeated, voice barely audible. "At minimum," Chen confirmed pleasantly, "though I should clarify that those are merely the advanced scouting groups." The Arcturian delegates' form rippled with what might have been laughter. "And the main fleet, Ambassador?" they inquired, clearly enjoying the Xylosians' discomfort. Chen considered the question while chewing thoughtfully. "I'm not at liberty to discuss specific numbers, of course, but I can assure you that Earth takes its defensive capabilities quite seriously." "Defensive?" 6's translator struggled to convey the complex harmonics of disbelief. "Your ships are positioned to cut off 17 strategic Xylosian trade routes." "Are they?" Chen appeared mildly surprised. "What a remarkable coincidence. Our navigational officers must have selected those coordinates entirely by chance." The Tenebrian delegate released another cloud, this one unmistakably conveying amusement. This is an act of aggression." 6 stammered, crystal plates now vibrating visibly. Chen's expression hardened just slightly, the first genuine emotion he had displayed throughout the exchange. "No, Envoy. Aggression would be demanding that another species restrict their sovereign expansion rights, based on fabricated concerns about their capabilities. What you're witnessing is merely a demonstration of capability." The ambassador dabbed his lips one final time, and rose from his seat. "Now if you'll excuse me, I have a scheduled communication with Fleet Command. I should inform them that their training exercises have been noticed." As Chen departed, The dining hall erupted in conversation. Several delegates immediately activated communication devices, no doubt informing their governments of this unexpected development in human-Xyzen relations. Delegate Sephiros drifted alongside the Proximan representative, their cloud form now a deep, thoughtful indigo. The humans have been hiding their capabilities, the Proximan observed, eye stalk still fully extended. Indeed, agreed the Arcturian, though perhaps hiding is too simple a term. They've been waiting. For what? The Arcturian's form shimmered with something like for precisely the right moment to reveal themselves. Not too early, before they were ready. Not too late, when opportunity had passed. Like brewing tea, the Proximan realized, recalling Chen's earlier metaphor. Exactly like brewing tea, the Arcturian confirmed. And I believe the Xylosians are about to experience a very strong cup indeed. Back in Xyzen space, the High Command was facing an increasingly uncomfortable reality. The tactical display now showed human vessels, massive, advanced human vessels, positioned at every major Xyzen trade route, colony cluster, and strategic resource point. And worst of all, the ships weren't doing anything. They were simply present, waiting, watching. The psychological effect was devastating. We must respond with military force, urged one commander. Crystal plates aligned in aggressive formation. With what? Countered another. Our fleet is scattered across 3 spiral arms. By the time we consolidate, they could strike at any of a dozen critical targets. Perhaps, suggested the third voice, harmonics modulated to convey diplomatic reasoning. We should consider a more conciliatory approach. High Commander Zix stared at the tactical display, crystal plates now perfectly still in the Xylosian expression of deep calculation. Send a message to our delegation at the Galactic Concord. They finally ordered. Envoy 6 is to formally withdraw our proposal regarding human expansion limitations. A communications officer's plates shifted in the pattern of cautious suggestion. Should we perhaps offer some form of apology for our previous assessment of human capability? The High Commander's harmonic response contained complex overtones of reluctant acknowledgement. Yes, they admitted. I believe that would be prudent. The naval presence had spoken without firing a single shot.
Crisis management is a delicate art across the galaxy, though few species practice it with quite the frantic energy the Xylosians were currently displaying. Their diplomatic corps had transitioned from smugly confident to apocalyptically panicked in roughly the time it takes light to travel from one end of a small moon to the other. The Xylosian Emergency Delegation Chamber, a room that hadn't been used since the Great Arcturian Misunderstanding 3 centuries prior, now buzzed with the discordant harmonics of crisis. The human fleet has established a complete strategic encirclement, reported the military attaché, crystal plates vibrating in the pattern denoting extreme alarm. They've positioned capital ships at every major transit point in our territory. What are their demands? Asked one counselor, plates shifting nervously. That's the most disturbing part, replied the intelligence officer. They haven't made any. The chamber fell silent, save for the subtle clicking of agitated crystal plates. No demands at all. The head counselor's harmonic voice wavered. No territorial concessions. No resource appropriation requests. No punitive measures. Nothing. Their ships maintain position. They respond to hails with minimal courtesy. They simply wait. The Xylosian psychological experts' plates arranged themselves into the configuration indicating professional assessment. This is a sophisticated intimidation tactic. The absence of demands creates uncertainty. The uncertainty generates fear. The fear leads to imagined worst-case scenarios far more terrifying than any actual demand might be. How do we negotiate with an adversary who won't tell us what they want? Asked a frustrated counselor. The head counselor's plates shifted to decision pattern. We must take the initiative. Envoy Tifs will formally withdraw our expansion restriction proposal at today's Concord session and offer an official apology for our miscalculation regarding human capabilities. An apology? Several counselors' plates rattled in dismay. The Xylosian Empire had not formally apologized to another species in over 1,500 years. Yes, the head counselor confirmed grimly. And it must be public, unambiguous, and Their harmonics shifted to a rare tone of genuine humility. Meanwhile, at the Galactic Concord, news of the human fleet had spread faster than a quantum entanglement cascade. The normally staid proceedings had given way to an atmosphere more reminiscent of a particularly juicy gossip session at an interstellar high school. "I heard their ships can manipulate localized gravity fields," whispered the Centaurian delegate to their Regilian counterpart. "My sources say they've developed some form of consciousness transfer technology," countered the Regilian. "Apparently their ships are partially operated by digitized human minds." "Well, I heard," the methane-breathing Tenebrian interjected with a particularly meaningful bubble, "that they've had this technology all along and were simply waiting for someone to underestimate them publicly." The chamber fell silent as the Arbiter called the session to order. "The Concord recognizes Envoy 6 of the Xylosian Empire, who has requested emergency speaking privileges. All eyes, eye stalks, sensory apparatus, and consciousness-projecting mechanisms turned toward the Xylosian delegation platform as it floated to the center of the chamber. Envoy 6 looked distinctly unwell for a crystalline being. Their normally iridescent plates had dulled to a flat, anxious blue, and their usual graceful movements had been replaced by stiff, jerky motions. "Esteemed delegates of the Galactic Concord," 6 began, voice lacking its usual harmonic confidence, "the Xylosian Empire wishes to formally withdraw its previous proposal regarding human expansion limitations." A murmur swept through the chamber. "Furthermore," 6 continued, each word seemingly extracted under duress, "we wish to extend our sincere apologies for our incorrect assessment of human technological capabilities and development status." The chamber erupted in astonished conversation. Several elder species representatives appeared to be experiencing the equivalent of jaw-dropping shock. The Arcturian delegate's cloud form pulsed with barely contained amusement. "The Xylosian Empire acknowledges that I spoke in error." 6's voice strained on the admission. "Humanity has clearly achieved technological advancement far beyond our previous understanding. We regret any implication that humans are in any way primitive." The final word seemed to physically pain the envoy. "We look forward to establishing more productive diplomatic relations with Earth and hope that this misunderstanding can be quickly resolved." The Arbiter's neural networks flashed rapidly. "The Concord acknowledges the Xylosian Empire's withdrawal of their proposal and their formal apology. The floor recognizes Ambassador Chen of Earth." Once again, Chen's platform detached from the fourth ring and floated toward the center. Unlike the Xylosian Envoy, the human appeared completely at ease, almost relaxed. "The representative of Earth thanks Envoy 6 and the Xylosian Empire for their reconsideration and apology," Chen said, inclining his head slightly. "Earth accepts both without reservation." Relief visibly swept through 6's crystal structure. "Regarding the current positioning of Earth's naval assets," Chen continued, "I am authorized to inform the Concord that our training exercises will conclude within 72 standard hours, at which point our vessels will withdraw to their regular patrol routes." The Xylosian Envoy's relief was palpable, crystal plates relaxing from their stress configuration. "However," Chen added, his voice taking on a subtle edge that caused 6's plates to instantly retighten, "Earth wishes to extend an invitation to the Xylosian Empire, and indeed to all Concord members, to participate in a joint technological exchange program." Chen smiled pleasantly. "After all, as Envoy 6 so eloquently pointed out during our last session, some civilizations may benefit from the assistance of others regarding certain technological applications." The chamber fell silent as the delegates processed the masterful diplomatic maneuver. The human had not only accepted the apology but had turned the Xylosian's original mockery into a framework for future cooperation, while simultaneously reminding everyone of the Empire's embarrassing miscalculation. "Earth has one additional announcement," Chen continued, his expression now serious. "In light of recent events, we formally request reclassification from fourth ring status to second ring status within the Concord, effective immediately." The chamber exploded in discussion. Moving up 2 full rings at once was unprecedented in Concord history. The Arbiter's neural networks flashed in complex patterns before settling. "The request is noted and will be put to formal vote at tomorrow's session." As Chen's platform returned to the fourth ring, the Proximan representative extended a congratulatory eye stalk in his direction. "Masterfully played, Ambassador," they observed quietly, the naval demonstration followed by magnanimous diplomacy. "I have no idea what you mean," Chen replied with feigned innocence. Earth was simply conducting routine exercises while simultaneously seeking improved interspecies cooperation. Of course, the Proximan agreed, eye stalks curling in amusement. And the timing was purely coincidental. "Entirely," Chen confirmed with a straight face. "Though I must say, the Xylosian apology was an unexpected but welcome development. Indeed, almost as unexpected as discovering that a supposedly primitive species had secretly developed a fleet of advanced warships, capable of strategic encirclement of the galaxy's third-largest empire." Chen's lips twitched slightly. The universe is full of surprises. 2 days later, the Galactic Concord voted overwhelmingly to approve Earth's reclassification to second ring status. The Xylosian Empire abstained from the vote, but raised no objection. As promised, the human fleet withdrew from Xylosian territory, exactly 72 hours after Chen's announcement. However, long-range sensors detected that several of the most advanced vessels had taken up new positions just beyond Concord space, positions that happened to provide excellent surveillance of key Xylosian resource world. In the newly assigned second ring platform, Ambassador Chen sipped his tea contemplatively as he observed the Concord proceeding. The Xylosian delegation had been notably subdued in recent sessions, their normally expansionist proposals replaced by cautious statements supporting existing interspecies agreements. The Arcturian delegate drifted near Chen's platform during a remarkable turnaround in Xylosian policy, they observed, cloud form shimmering with knowing amusement. "Evolution through education," Chen replied mildly. "Sometimes perspectives require adjustment. And the naval exercises, truly just exercises?" the Arcturian inquired. Chen's expression remained neutral, but his eyes carried a hint of steel beneath the diplomatic veneer. "Of course, though Earth believes in maintaining readiness. One never knows when one might need to demonstrate capability, a philosophy many species may need to reassess in light of recent events," the Arcturian noted. "The Concord has long operated on appearances and assumptions. Dangerous things, assumptions." Chen agreed. "Almost as dangerous as mockery." Indeed, the Arcturian's form pulsed thoughtfully. "Though I cannot help but wonder, what would Earth have done had the Xylosians not backed down?" Chen considered the question, taking another sip of his tea before answering. "Nothing at all. The fleet was instructed to maintain position indefinitely, but not to engage unless attacked." "A bluff?" The Arcturian seemed surprised. "Not at all. Presence is power," Delegate Zephyros. "Words may mock, treaties may bind. But presence, particularly naval presence, makes the most eloquent statement of all." The Arcturian's form shifted to a color denoting respect, a lesson the Concord will not soon forget. In the following months, 17 species applied for technological exchange programs with Earth. The Xylosian Empire, notably, was first among. When asked by the Proximan representative whether Earth had always possessed such advanced technology, or had developed it in secret, Ambassador Chen merely smiled and offered a cryptic response. "Perhaps the most primitive approach of all is assuming that because someone doesn't showcase their strength, they must not possess it." Across the chamber, Envoy 6's crystal plates shifted uncomfortably as they caught the human's eye. The mockery had been answered not with outrage or retaliation, but with quiet and naval presence. And throughout the vast reaches of Concord space, diplomats of all species began to measure their words more carefully when discussing the allegedly primitive humans from Earth.